Americans, do you want universal healthcare? Why? Why not? We are living in a corrupt government, one where the politicians are being paid to do nothing for the citizens. Any chance of reform will be struck down, and as much as I'd love to see it happen, it most certainly won't. Forget healthcare. What about climate change? The USA is doing virtually nothing to try and change the corporations' behavior to pollution. https://www.followthemoney.org/ It makes sense, as the corporations give billions of dollars to politicians to make sure it stays that way. Do not be fooled by the illusion of democracy, for that will be our downfall. We only have a certain amount of time to spread the word en masse, to try and reach the public before it's too late. We are nearing the tipping point, and nobody seems to care. Well, I care, and I hope you do too, because I want to grow up in a world where I will be happy to contribute to my country, where I could raise a child and have my own business, a society in which nobody is afraid that they will go into debt. Please, check out my movement if you are interested in contributing. R. Citizens United. United we stand, or together we fall. That's the big problem. You pay 14% of your income. That's way too fucking much. Okay, now get this. USA pays 17% for the shit system they have now. It's just obscured in maze of insurance premiums, co-pays, tax write-offs, and yachts, private jets for C-level execs, current health expenditure, percent of GDP. 14% is nothing if you consider the fact that employers have to contribute for all of their employees' insurance plan through a group coverage rate. That's on top of what I also have to contribute per paycheck. Looking at my recent tax return, that number is absolutely insane compared to what I get in return. German here, we almost all pay 14% of our income. That's a lot, but since everyone pays it, it's a regular part of how we calculate wages. There's a huge mental benefit in knowing that you'll always have healthcare, even if you lose your job. My partner regularly gets out more than he pays into the system. He needs Humira and his copay is €5 every 6 months. Funny thing is, when I worked for the Toronto Blue Jays, the players used the Canadian healthcare over the MLB Player Association healthcare, which would be the go-to for any other team, which shocked me, being as the MLB healthcare is supposed to be one of the best in the country. USA, the head athletic trainer basically said, Canada's healthcare system is top-notch and it doesn't make sense using an inferior insurance. Now maybe this was because it was for a player who got the flu and might not be the case for other types of care, but still funny regardless. A friend of mine in the US has so much medical and student loan debt that she just accepts it will never be paid off. I had to adjust my thinking in her case because I'm more of make huge payments to pay it all off as fast as possible type person. But she said her debt was so big that she wouldn't be able to eat and would be living in poverty until she was old if she did that. So her method is to pay as little as humanly possible on the debt until she dies. It will never be paid, in her mind, so why even bother? I guess that's how people do it. I remember my first experience of culture shock. I, from the US, was in Canada riding a motorcycle around in my early 20s, got to chatting with some similar-aged young ladies, one of whom had a cast on her arm. I was in disbelief that it had cost her nothing to treat, and they were in disbelief that a similar injury in the US would have bankrupted me. Our system up here definitely isn't perfect, but yeah, I've never paid for a thing besides ordering food because I didn't feel like hospital meals. It's fairly remote where I live, and when I busted my arm I had a cab to the airport and a medevac flight to Winnipeg to get screws and plates put in. 3 nights in the hospital, then got put on a commercial flight home, and out of all that my only expense was $35 for a baggage fee. It really blows me away how people can be against health care. I'm a Canadian who used to work in the healthcare industry in the distribution of hospital supplies. I knew exactly what each thing costs. down to a single cotton ball. While in the US once I was hospitalized and the itemized bill they gave me was robbery. Meanwhile in Canada, I've been sick and injured so many times I've lost count of how many hospital stays I've had, as well as several major surgeries. I've never paid a single penny for any of it. Yup, most people in the white-collar world have good insurance, and whatever white-collar job they get will have good insurance. But there are a lot of people in gov jobs, generally very good insurance but lower pay, or other jobs with good insurance, who feel they can't leave because they have kids or take medications that are expensive out of pocket. It's crazy. If they separated insurance from our jobs, I bet a lot of people would quit and pursue something else. Constantly, literally constantly, to the point that they'll break themselves physically and mentally in the process because they're desperate to have at least something to fall back on if they get sick, only to lose their job because they push themselves too hard and now the company no longer sees them as useful, and American employees have so few protections it's like history's worst joke. Also, if it seems complex, that's because it is, pointlessly, needlessly complex, overblown, and practically worthless despite it all. Even good insurance these days can force you to pay multiple thousands of dollars before they'll cover anything, and then stop covering anything if you need more. The whole thing is set to fuck over anyone who tries to actually use it. Insurance in the US is usually tied to a job. If it's offered, it's usually too expensive to just pay for insurance yourself. So you get whatever insurance the job offers. Problem: every insurance company has a million plans and there's countless insurance companies too. Each plan supports different doctors. They specifically have a system where a doctor may or may not be approved for certain plans. Sometimes Doc John is approved. Sometimes he's not. Sometimes Doc Steve is approved. Sometimes not. Sometimes both. Sometimes neither. This is all highly variable. If you go to a doctor who is not covered, you either get vastly reduced coverage or no coverage at all, and have to pay largely or completely out of pocket. Most people don't have the money to deal with the lack of coverage, so if you're at job A with insurance A plan A, you go to Doc A because that's the one who is available to you. Switch to job B because of a better offer or because you lost the old job or whatever. Now you're on insurance B plan B in Doc B, because you can't afford to go to Doc A anymore because he's not covered. Switch to job C, insurance C, plan C. Maybe you get lucky and one of the previous doctors is available. Probably not though. Can confirm that state employees are literally encouraged to fly to Canada and Mexico. I also have family members that regularly trek up north for antidepressants because the prices on basic drugs in this country are suicide-worthy. It's time to stop wasting lives with voting and start smacking dollars out of politicians like the inept pinatas that they are. The lives of my family are worth far more than theirs, and so are yours. Stop turning the other cheek just to die of preventable maladies. Greyhound bus ticket, ca. $150. Hotel, the cheap type, ca. $20-40 a night. Food, ca. $20 a day, maybe. Passport, $140 for the booklet, $60 for the card. Get the booklet. The card is limited in range, and is not good for air travel. Either are good for 10 years. Mexico is very affordable if you plan things out. If you have a passport, and are vaccinated, get thy butt to Mexico. Your insurance might offer a reduced deductible. Utah has even asked state employees to get the medicine in Mexico due to lower cost. Hospitals are set up in Tijuana, and other border cities, solely for U.S. medical tourism. Mexico costs about a quarter to half of the US costs, or even less if you go deeper into the mainland. Monterrey in Mexico City is cheaper than Tijuana. You can't get a colonoscopy because you're too young? What kind of bullshit is that? I had a colonoscopy when I was 31 and another when I was 35. Neither one of them were my idea. The first one was because I had a fistula, and the second one was due to some concerning rectal bleeding that just turned out to be big fat internal hemorrhoids. I feel so bad for Americans, man. One of my best friends lives in NY state and I worry about her if she were ever to break her leg or something. Frown. My gastro doctor's youngest patient to die from colon cancer was a 16-year-old girl. If you can't get a doctor to diagnose your issues, go to the ER, they will find out what is going on. My dad died of colon cancer. He went to his regular doctor but she thought he had pulled a muscle. A little over 2 weeks later he drove himself to the ER at 6 a.m. and by 10 a.m. after a CORT scan we knew he had a large mass in his abdomen, and the next day we found out he had colon cancer. With the symptoms you are experiencing, go to the ER. Same shit I'm going through on two fronts. 1. My hands are constantly going numb and tingly on me, and my sternum pops when I lift my shoulder. Can't see ortho. Second, have had upper left quadrant pain for 6 months and rectal pain. Cannot get a colonoscopy because I'm too young. Still paying a shitload cause I've gone to the doctor 5 times in the last 6 months trying to get these issues taken care of. I fucking hate US healthcare. I was in a similar situation a couple of months ago. Long story short, I had to go to 2 DRS. The first one did not want to do an MRI till the next visit in 2 weeks, probably to get more money out of my insurance. The second one ordered MRI right away. Still had to pay about $500 out of pocket even though I have pretty decent insurance. They scheduled me another appointment so he could go over the results, which would have taken about 5 minutes through a phone conversation. But yeah, you guessed it, they wanted to get more money out of my insurance. Had to pay deductibles for all this shit. BTW. Doctor ordered physical therapy, which I ended up skipping it because I would have had to pay 50% out of pocket. I have plenty more fucked up US healthcare system stories. I don't give a shit what anyone says, healthcare should not be a business. People that have been convinced to not want universal healthcare only want universal healthcare when they or someone they know personally needs it. GOP convincing people to go against their best interest falls apart. Usually, not always, when the effects of it are right in front of them. There are also plenty of countries with mixed systems. I'm currently in Australia, which is a mix of universal healthcare and mandatory private insurance. For above a certain income level, our system is stretched, but my wife needed an MRI on private insurance last year, and from memory it cost less than $100 out of pocket, was done the next day. And it certainly will not have increased our premiums this year. A couple of months back I ended up being an inpatient for 4 days for 4 antibiotics and a minor but urgent procedure. I could have chosen to use my private insurance, which I've already paid for, or go public. I went public, as I'd have had to pay several hundred in out-of-pocket expenses in private. My total cost for 4 nights as an inpatient was $0. But I had to pay $15 for oral antibiotics on leaving. All the private insurance is good for is speeding up elective surgery, and covering ambulances. I'd much rather get rid of it and increase funding to the public option. I had some weird symptoms, nerve pain, laggy leg, other stuff. Doctor tried to tell me it was sciatica. It was not. I was in my 20s. My primary doctor ordered an MRI, because of the misdiagnosis. The MRI was rejected. I appealed and won my appeal, but the process took so long the MRI found nothing of note. 7 years and a lot of other weird things and periods spent with no medical care due to no insurance. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Diagnosing neurologist looking at my brain scans telling me I have a lot of lesions. I have the relapsing remitting type, so it was years of symptoms. Nothing. Weird things. Nothing. I have permanent symptoms now though. I know someone who lost her husband because some lackey decided he didn't need a heart MRI. While they were waiting for the appeal to go through, he died. Guess what? It was something that would have been found with the MRI and would have been immediately treatable and he would have lived. People always bring up wait times in countries with universal healthcare. They don't ever talk about our system where we pay out of the nose and still have to wait or get flat out denied. I'm sitting in my house with a torn something in my knee, probably lie still bleeding based on the spreading bruise, waiting 2 weeks for some lackey to decide that I'm worthy of an MRI because I can't talk to an ortho without an because rules. Also I can pay for the visit, MRI and probably most of the PT out of my own pocket, which will set me back years financially. Yeah, I want health insurance I can go use when I actually need and not worry about it ruining me. Give me all of that goodness. Edit. I should add that I have insurance. I have a kid and my deductible is like $6,000, so I may as well not have insurance. After insurance paid for 66% of everything, this is what blows my mind. You have to pay out a fair chunk every month for insurance? That sucks. But guess it's not really any different to our NHS contributions. Oh, but you also have to pay a deductible which can be in the thousands. Well, that double sucks. I can see why people are hesitant to phone an ambulance, and the insurance doesn't even cover your full bill. I don't understand this system at all. I find this so scary. A couple of years ago our then 9-year-old daughter fell off her bike and ruptured her spleen. I drove her to our nearest hospital which is an hour away where we attend A&E. We spent 6 hours at the local hospital whilst they assessed what was wrong and this included pain relief, sonogram and a CT scan. Once they found the ruptured spleen we were transferred by air ambulance to the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, which would have been a 4.5-hour drive, where she stayed for 6 days seeing the best children's surgeons etc. And how much did that cost us, you ask? Nothing, aside from the $80 per year fee to be an ambulance Victoria. And RCH Melbourne is literally one of the leading kids hospitals in the world. I'm not sure a city-state could ever be a valid comparison here. I mean, how many providers can there even be in one city? Would a concept like different insurance companies having different networks even make sense there? Also, if you look at a world with dozens of well-functioning single-payer systems across all sorts of countries and one very special case well-functioning private system and conclude private systems are the way to go, it seems pretty clear that you already had an agenda to push to begin with. The big thing to take away is that plenty of other countries have tried countless other systems, single-payer, two-tier, totally publicly funded, etc. Many of them have pretty good outcomes and it's healthy to debate the merits of each one. What is universally true though, is that the American system is by far the worst. It's like someone took the worst things out of all the systems and combined them together. I think a lot of the jobs have less to do with sales, and more to do with navigating the maze that is medical insurance bullshit. My sister-in-law works at a hospital, and her sole job deals with billing, negotiating, and managing the tons of different insurance policies their patients have. She doesn't even work for an insurance company, but her job probably wouldn't exist without it. She's in something like a 25-person department. But if healthcare in the US were more sane and streamlined, the department would probably be 4 or 5 people. I went to Canada to visit friends several years ago. I forgot a bottle of prescription meds at home. I went to a clinic, explained the situation to the doctor and she wrote me a 30-day prescription that I was able to fill at a pharmacy in the lobby of the same building. Total cost for the visit and the meds was $48 Canadian. Without using insurance. The copay for the meds here in the US is $50. We pay extra at every stage of the process. Same thing happened to me. Pneumonia in Germany. I was a tourist then. I live here now. Didn't have to wait to see a doctor. Didn't have to be a patient. Doctor visit. Meds. €25. An X-ray or even an MRI is relatively cheap too. Very little wait. My best friend came to visit me when she was pregnant and thought she was having a miscarriage. I took her to my gynecologist and he did an ultrasound right then and there. Didn't charge her at all. The most important thing is that the baby is safe. That's just horrible. I was once changing jobs and my kid's insurance is through me. As it happened, due to some clerical issue, my insurance was not sorted out and my kid fell and had symptoms of the brain concussion. I took him to the hospital where he underwent some tests, and 3 days of observation. The invoice was exactly €0. He even got a toy on discharge. That's Europe for you.